So it is January 12th, 2022. I'm making more generic mocha. No licorice root powder in there, just organic vegan cane sugar and carrageenan was the thickener. Mixture of the brown rice milk powder, soy milk powder, and organic unprocessed raw cacao powder, along with the fair trade freeze dried organic non decaffeinated coffee. I don't know if I said that in the right order about the coffee. But that's okay. Because I don't have obsessive compulsive disorder. Well, I do, but I can control it. Everyone, I think, has a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder, but it's whether or not they can control it. Anyways. What's the status update? I'm quoting one of the actors from the TV show or series Mr. Robot, where they're dealing with the distributed denial of service attack on their cybersecurity firm servers. He has to restart the server, by using command prompts, command line. He has to set up all the routing tables and stuff. Where he finds I think he finds a worm in there or something. Yeah, something like that. Anyways, so what's the status update? I think there are different types of status. Usually status is what you can get away with some things. I mean, that's a different type of status. It's for instance, like Banksy, he at one point was wanted by the Federal Bureau of Investigators or Investigation Unit, and this was around 2005. No, wait. It was around 2004, I believe. It was around that time period when it was published in a book that I didn't know of him being wanted. A wanted graffiti artist by the FBI, and then now he had shows like in 2006 in Los Angeles, and was able to get away with doing that. I mean, he did most of his work, let's say in London, I believe it is, and then he was able to do an open art gallery in Los Angeles in 2006 without being extradited or having that type of threat imposed on him, I believe. At that point, celebrities already knew about him. They already heard about his work and books and stuff like that, probably. And they were the ones that helped him. Not necessarily them, but his artwork in itself, the way he does it. It's like a political, satirical, but it's very interpretive and literate, so that most people would be able to understand it in some ways for its time. That is kind of like why if he had done a piece, let's say in a public space and somewhere, chances are he wouldn't really get a threat of a jail sentence today. Whereas or maybe a decade ago, possibly. But let's say if it was 2 decades ago, he would have probably had more of a fear of a jail sentence because in art documentaries like Graffiti Wars is an art documentary that I came across on YouTube, and they one of the I guess they're public official or how to put it, like a town councilman or something like that. It was like the mayor of some city or something. And he was being interviewed, and he was saying how if it's a Banksy, you keep it up on the wall. If it's not, then he would look at it and then to say whether or not if it's a if there's any notoriety or anything that would give it of a value where someone would maybe be able to actually sacrifice a piece of the wall being removed using like a Dremel or chisel of sort, and then be auctioned off at an auction or something like that, or just as a something that would be left on the wall, like instead of it being sandblasted by the town workers. You know what I mean? And then him going to jail or getting a fine. It's because he was able to. It's because he was able to gain the acceptance for what he was doing. Where at first he was, he would have probably faced fines and stuff like that. Sometimes people are hired by the government if they have a certain skill set, or if they have a something that may be very difficult or rare to come across another person possibly being able to provide. And it's very useful, extremely useful. So they would just it's very difficult to be able to gain that type of acceptance, though. You know what I mean? Extremely difficult in some cases.
How much was that?
But there is an issue where there are people below. This is what I don't like. There are people below the Central Intelligence Agency, right? Who are trying to they are taking advantage of people who could possibly be hired to work for the Central Intelligence Agency, or they're trying to pull them into, let's say, hospitals and things like that and medicate them when they could actually be card counter, like do card counting for let's say they are a savant or they have some type of savantism when it comes to, let's say, calendar counting and stuff. I don't have that, but I I met people who had um, that type of ability where they could have been the government could have used them to, let's say, to see if they're able to break algorithms and things like that, so that they can know whether or not it could be penetrated, a penetration tester. And yet they were being, let's say, their time was being taken away from doing that type of job for the government, where the government could actually been using them for that. See what I'm saying? I get very upset over when I see something like that, because it's like, okay, here, in my case, I do something else with my life. You know what I mean? But I could actually, right now, I could have a Dodge Viper in my driveway. I could be living in a mansion with a group of women. But am I doing that now? No. And yet you got these people who are who are under, let's say, the federal government. They're below that layer, and what they're doing is they are literally preventing, let's say, a guy connecting with a female to make progress in the world. You know what I'm saying? And then yet that guy has to find a substitute somehow for that. And then they think medication is the answer for everything as a substitute for, let's say, a female to be a part of his life. I do have a medical condition. I did nearly die 20 years ago from a near fatal poisoning of sort, and I had amnesia in my friend's car when I woke up that night. But yeah, I made it into the 3 days later, and then for a month I was clear of symptoms. A month later, I had symptoms that suddenly came back, and I had them for 7 months in succession, for intermittently every day, basically. Time dilation. So, and the residual symptom to prove all that is the palinopsia, which is the scar tissue that may have developed within my visual cortex that causes light trails to emit behind motor vehicles when the red brake lights go on. I see the red brake lights perfectly, but I do also see this very translucent or transparent, but yet opaque enough to clearly see a ultraviolet rectangular, but like comet like, the way that is written, comet like, I'm quoting, but kind of like a flame. And then it's like it leads behind the motor vehicle only at night and on overcast days where the contrast of is dark enough outside to be able to see that happen. But yeah, that's the way I can prove it, kind of like a watermark within, let's say, a $20 bill, that I'm not counterfeiting my testimonials. So that's where the, but yet you got people who are under, let's say, the federal government, right? Who may work at some other level of, maybe they work for the state, but they're supposed to be, let me tell you, they're skipping. If you think of, let's say, me as a piece on a board game, and then on the board game there's a set of rules where you're not supposed to skip over, let's say, you know where, for instance, in Monopoly, it's like you could go to jail, and if you don't go to jail, it's like you're cheating, basically. You know what I mean? And on the game, you got these people on the outside taking my piece where I had already had 7 months of hallucinogenic persisting perceptual disorder 20 years ago, with along with amnesia that